We're live on Facebook.
We are. Hey, so I'm here with Leslie Josel of Order Out of Chaos, student organizer, coach, um, founder of Order Out of Chaos, and she is going to help us with back to school stuff in this weird COVID back to school. I know some of you, I have a friend in Chicago. They just found out they're all remote for this semester. My kids are going back in person with, hybrid and other plans in place. So it's a whole mix across the country. People are just, I think people are nervous about it all, right?
It is. I know this is going to sound crazy to say. So when everybody came home in March, obviously that presented so many problems. I called it crisis learning. In fact, everyone was calling it homeschooling. And actually the homeschooling population was really upset about that because what we were doing in March and April and May was not homeschooling. We have to remember homeschooling is a choice.
Right.
Those that do homeschool really take into account everything. Also, homeschooling is not being isolated alone in your home. There's co-ops and communities, and you go out and you're very kinesthetic in what you do. It was complete crisis learning. However, that's what I called it, crisis learning. No one wanted it.
That's true.
No one expected it. But the one thing that was interesting about that versus what we're seeing now was we were all in the same boat. We had no decisions to make, right? It was mandated. Schools closed, your child was home. And because teachers were not prepared, no fault of theirs, there was a little we'll figure it out as we go along. There was some leniency. Now the issue where we're seeing, particularly at Order Out of Chaos, is the insurmountable decisions that parents have to make of what to do with their children. And it is so stress induced, so anxiety, because you're not just making a decision for your child, you're making it for yourself, your family, even your community.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're hearing is parents saying, in some ways, I wish I didn't have a decision. I wish somebody would just say, this is it. I don't want a decision. Decisions tend to be very stressful because, and one of the things that we are mantraing over at where I live, meaning my Order Out of Chaos community, is every decision whatever decision you make is the right decision for you. And as a parent to parent, if someone says, I've decided to send my kid back or decided to do hybrid, I'm sure any decision you made was stressful. Good for you for coming up what's right for you. That should be it. We should not be denigrating each other. We should not be judging each other because we all know how hard this decision is.
That's great. I appreciate that because my school is offering obviously in person. They're also offering that you can do hybrid, you can do all remote, whatever you choose. It's a small school, so they have the ability to offer parents and families a choice, but it is hard to know. You're like, am I doing the right thing? You're often feeling like no choice that you make is going to be exactly right, but you have to just go with the best for your family at the time. And I have one of my daughters has a friend who they've chosen to do remote because they have family members who have pre-existing conditions, underlying health conditions that are fairly severe. So that's the choice that they as a family need to make.
And what we need to do as a community, whatever community you're in, is we need to say, we're so proud of you for being able to make a decision that works for you. That's a big thing in my book right now, is just trying to support families in any way, whether you chose virtual, going, and a mix. So, because it is, back to school used to be, where should we buy our new backpack? And, do we want the blue binder or the red binder? And now it's insurmountable, life. And I don't want to sound but in some communities, it is a life and death situation. I don't want to make this work.
Yeah.
In some communities, you are really making a very hard decision. So,
right. It makes my Staples freak out with, I used to have, I don't know, the school back to school shopping list, and my having a conniption fit in Staples because the list is just crazy. That's nothing anymore.
So I'm going to say something because we all have that shopping list of the blue binder and the red binder, but there are things on your shopping list that are probably not there.
Okay.
that if your child is home, not if they're going back to school, if they're going in person, then your list stands, meaning you're bringing the tissues and the wipes and you're bringing your blue binders and the red binders. But there are definitely a few things that your child needs to have at home, I believe, and I've been doing this for 16 years, so do the math. I've seen a lot of kids working from home, what kids need to have. And I try not to spend a lot of people's money. And they're definitely not on a typical back to school shopping list. So I don't know if you can see behind me that I have an analog clock hanging in my office. If you know anything about me, I am an analog clock girl. Okay, there's analogs everywhere, even in my house, and I'm an empty nester.
And we even have the actual watch. Nice.
Your child needs to have an analog clock in every room they spend time in. So if your child has a bedroom, a bathroom, the kitchen, if he's decided to do homework, and I'm going to just say she, I'm sorry, it's just easier. Even in a den, there needs to be an analog in every room of your house. And here's why. Think about a schoolroom. If you've ever looked in your child's school room, there is an analog clock. It allows your child to see time move. What we need to spend time thinking about is how to mimic the structure, the support, the cues, and the transitions that your child gets in school. So these are a few creative, inexpensive ways to do so. Clocks.
That's great.
Everywhere.
And also, if you don't have a place to put an analog clock, I know I put one, there are apps you can get for your computer, for your laptop, whatever, that puts an analog clock on your desktop, on your computer.
100%. But if you have kids and you're like, well, I want it, like if you have more than, let's say you have 3 kids and you're all sitting in the kitchen, you might want one because, again, we're trying to mimic what school looks like.
So they're used to looking up from their desk at that clock.
Right, and they can see time move. They can see, I have a saying, I call it pause, picture, pace. I like my sound bites. So if your child is losing motivation, let's say they're home, being home, not great, we know that. But if they're losing motivation and they don't know how much time, where they sit in time, their focus is going to go out the door. If they see on a clock how much time they might have left, if they're on a Zoom call or if they're working on a project or what have you, what that allows them to do is pause. Where am I in time? I can picture that I only have 5 more minutes, and then they can pace themselves to re-energize to get to that finish line. If your child can't put them, if a student can't put themselves in time, it's like floating in space. They have no idea where they begin, where they end, how much time. So that motivation is going to go right out the window. That is why those clocks in schools are strategically there. Your child looks at it and goes, oh, I only have 5 more minutes to social studies. I can do that. 5 more minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm in it. But that's something I'm like, oh, parents like, oh, I never looked at it that way, but that makes so much sense. You want them to be able to pause, picture, pace, and your analogs do that. Okay.
Right, because they allow you to see those pies, the slices of time, as opposed to just numbers ticking by.
Right. And
I even got one. Yeah.
Digital
I even got for the shower. I got this, suction kind in the shower, analog clock. You stick it right on the wall of the shower. So, when the teenagers start taking the 45-minute showers.
So you've heard me speak, because I've always say that you have to have a clock in your bathroom, and some kids need 2. One by the sink, and if you have a teenager, you kind of need one in the shower.
Inside the shower, it's essential.
Inside the shower. Oh, yes.
That's great. Okay. So I had a question, if you don't mind. A friend asked me to ask you this. So some schools are more directed in their online learning, if they're going to the online model, where, and with my kids' school, it was the case. They had certain time, set class periods.
Calls. They had
a teacher was there on the call, whatever.
Oh, good.
And then others are a little more, they're a little more self-directed for the students. Like maybe the teacher gets on and starts them off, and then the kids are supposed to do. So she was wondering how should kids break up their time then, in terms of work time. And this can apply to homework sessions too,
Of
right?
course.
Work
Yes.
sessions,
Yes.
break time. I mean, I think she probably wants like a specific, like work for this amount of time
No,
and then break for this
no,
amount of time. That's a
no,
no. Okay,
no,
so what do you
absolutely
advise?
no. And that's what I meant when, and full disclosure, I was like, she's not gonna like my answer. You have to
Yeah.
remember every child shows up is different. You know, there's a saying that I work with all able learners, but we predominantly work with children with ADHD and learning differences. And our motto is, what we always say, again, I have a lot of sayings, is if you've seen one ADHD child, you've seen one ADHD child, because, and that goes for anyone. Every
Yeah.
student has a different, you know, a way of learning. So two things I'm going to say to that is, I'm going to give you an anecdote, and then I'm going to give you actually a tool. So I work right now primarily with college students, and one of my college students was struggling pre-pandemic. He had like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning classes, and sitting in the classroom and having to listen to a professor. Pandemic hit, came home, nothing was live. He started his day at 9 p.m. at night and went to 2 in the morning. And his mother reached out and said, what do I do? And I said, you do absolutely nothing. And she said, but he's having the best semester he's ever had. He is walking around and sitting on the floor and upside down and working till 3. I said, because he has tapped into his best practices. For him, he found his sweet spot. He figured out that the nighttime, when it's quiet and the day is done, is his time to activate. Okay, so that's it. But that's a big thing. If your child has online learning, like has to show up for Zoom calls, they need to be there, and they will be there because those calls anchor them. We're mimicking the school schedule. So if your child has to be at science at 9 and math at 10, they're going to do it because, you know, there's that accountability piece.
Sure.
What I would advise you, if you have a child that has none of that and they have to be self-motivated, is if you can, you should separate the two places where they do things. We need to create a home and a school. So try to find one place in your house that your child will go to school. That's where he might have to watch his lectures. That's where he might like even do the online learning. Like let that be a completely different area in the house. And then there should be another area in the house that's like, if he was typically coming home for homework, where he would do it. I have kids doing that to the point where they get up in the morning, they get dressed, they leave their house, walk around the block. Seriously, you can do that.
It's great. It's great. You get a morning walk, you get the vitamin D.
But we're mimicking going to school. It's a transition point. That's what we have to do. You've got to transition the brain. The brain is a muscle and it needs to wake up and be exercised. So your kid can't just sit down at a desk and go, okay, it's time for me to learn. He has those transitions at school. I'm going to keep saying it, any way that you can mimic what he had at school, you need to mimic that at home. So walking was the way to mimic driving to school in the morning. And what we were doing with these students is having them come into their house in a different doorway. And so packing the backpack, walking around the block, coming in the house, going into a different door and going somewhere else where they would sit down to do their school day. And then when the school day was over, they would go back out and go do homework. Now, if you have younger students, here's something that is true. The more we move, the more we lay down our learning, the more we stay motivated. For younger kids who don't have like, video calls and things like that, and you're a parent and you're home, what I suggest you do is you make it as fun and motivating as possible. So if you've got like an 8-year-old and they have math sheets, put it in the bathtub. Let them go find their work. Let them go sit in the bathtub and do their homework. Let them go sit under the kitchen table. Let them go sit on the floor in the pantry closet. Let them go sit on the sidewalk outside your house. Let them do math with sidewalk chalk. Anything that is going to create fun and energy and motivation.
I think it's true, the movement, because I'm a big, I love to listen to audiobooks, podcasts, whatever, and I love to walk when I'm doing that. And I think, yeah, combining the movement and learning gets it into your brain in a different way
So
and being static.
100%. So here's a tip for parents too. So, and this works every time. If you have a dog, best thing right now, everyone owns a dog right now. It's like we call it right? What did my
Pandemic dog.
Pandemic puppies. Pandemic puppies. But here's the thing. Your child maybe has a quiz the next day and he made some flashcards, or you have a sheet of vocab words. Give your child the dog. You grab whatever tool he used. Go take a 20-minute walk in your neighborhood. We are all allowed to be doing that. In fact, it's good for us. It's summer and it's going to be beautiful in August and September. He's going to come back and he's going to go, do I have to study now? And you're going to go, you already did. Because that walking and talking and movement, it's so much better. It is research proven. I want people to listen to me. The more you move, the more you lay down your learning. The more you sit, it's like the law of diminishing returns. It just doesn't get into the brain. Yep. So even in your own house, if you can move your child, if you have the luxury of living in a house and you can move them around the house. I have some kids literally who have a sign over the den that says math class, and their bedroom is science. The kitchen is English, and they've actually made signs that mimic school. They get up, they go outside, they come back to go to a new classroom.
That's brilliant. I love that.
You need to, we're all talking about structure. And I'm like, what you really need to be doing is transitions. What we are forgetting is your child has transitions all day long in school. Even within the classroom, there's a transition. Remember, your child's teacher teaches for maybe 20 minutes, and then the transition is, okay, everyone work on the do now. So they go from high alert to low alert. You cannot expect your child to stay on high alert all day long at home.
No. And those rituals, I think, are important. That the ritual of the transition is what, triggers your brain to get into a different mode, right?
Yes.
That's great.
Here's another great idea if you have older students, because trust me, this is what I've been doing for the last 6 months. Yeah. I have kids who are in the, who are friends and they're all in the same classes. What they have done, even though they're home alone, is they've come up with a schedule together. So they're working, and I'm going to say this, 90% of kids, when they're working online, they're really working online. Give your kid the benefit of the doubt. But some work alone, and then they're like, okay, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, we're going to have our break. And they go on Zoom together.
Yeah.
What they're doing, remember, your child walked out of class, met his friends, and walked for 10 minutes to his next class. That's a transition. That's a social thing there that is sorely missing. So if you can build that into the day where you have a group of parents that you know and your kids are friends, okay, everybody's getting their 10-minute walk to class.
Great.
Okay, now
virtual
we're going
walk to class.
Virtual walk to class. I'm telling you, the more creative you can get, the better your child will be. And again, all of this is age dependent.
Yeah, no, it's great. So another question that came up for me is, because I was confronting that list of school supplies since my kids are going back in person, and some of the teachers get real specific about what they want your kid to have. And if that's not working for your kid, what do you advise?
Okay. So
how do you handle it?
Not as hard as you think. So here's my feeling. I've been doing this for 16 years and I've only met one teacher who laid down the supply law. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That tough noogies, you have to do it my way. What you need to do as a parent, and I've actually written these for parents, they're not hard to write, is you need to come up first with the system that works for your child. So I have kids who use Case-It binders, they're all in one because it's customizable and they love it. Most of my students love the Duo binder. It's a binder and an accordion file together. They love them. So as long as you can write an email to the teachers and say, as you know, Leslie struggles with some organizational issues. having too many supplies is too overwhelming. This is what we've used in the past. It works beautifully. I'm more than happy to show it to you. I am sure you want Leslie to be as organizationally successful as we do, right? You're basically not giving the teacher, I'm not disparaging teachers, they're amazing. They have to start somewhere, right?
Right.
But if you're going to come to them and say, that's not going to work for my child and they need to be organizationally successful, I have never met a teacher who said, I don't want your child to be organizationally successful.
Got it.
Send that email, make sure, send a picture of what your child is going to use. Ask them if they'd like to see it in person. Interestingly, I have never met a teacher who says no. It's usually the student who doesn't want to look different. It's not the teacher. It's the student who says, everyone's carrying the red binder. I don't want the blue one. Does that, right?
That is very familiar, yes. And I have a student who likes to do, she's very by the book. If the teacher says it's this way, and and it's her interpretation of what the teacher's saying sometimes, but I get it. I think, and to try to, yes, the teachers want their students to be successful, and that's their goal.
Especially now. God bless them all. I'm going to say that, but they have so much on their plate right now. If you are cooperative and collaborative was the word I was looking for. If you are collaborative, send them an email and say, we've used this in the past. This is our magic elixir. My kid is attached to this. Not, hole punching is never going to be in his vocabulary. Seriously, they're really going to be okay with it.
Right.
Really going to be
That's great. I love that. Yeah, and I think it's workable. It's just, I think there's also the changing the mindset of the child that, it's okay to do something, like, even though the teacher wanted it this way, we've worked it out where you can do a different thing. And that I had that issue last year with the planner, because I love your planner, academic planner. It's, I think, absolutely the best planner out there. And, but the school it was for my middle schooler. They had middle school 101 class that they did, which was like an organizing, like how to study, how to be a middle schooler where you're traveling from class to class, different teachers, all of that. And they had a certain planner that they, bought in bulk, whatever. And I really wanted her to use your planner because it's easier, it's better for her anyway. So, but the counselor was fine with us using it. She's like, that's fine. If you want to use a different planner, I'm still going to work with her on how to use the planner. And I said, great. And it was my child who was saying, she's like, well, they want us to use this one. I'm like, nope, I worked it out with the teacher. It's fine. You can use a different one. She's like, are you sure? Should I maybe have a, I'm like, no, it's fine.
And we've seen that with most schools. Again, it's similar, whether it's a supplier or planner. If a planner is supplied by the school, but people are using a different one, as long as it's matches, like, meaning if a school's supplying a paper planner, cannot come in and say, well, I want to use electronic because we use the planner as a time management tool. I get that. Trust me, I get it. But again, never met a school who said you have to use. And
I did appreciate that the school used a paper planner, because I think especially when you're starting to use a planner, paper is still that tactile, the act of writing it down is really helpful to get it into your brain.
Well, that, and also, yes, absolutely. But it also, what it does is it allows you to see the whole picture. I work with, it's funny, people ask me all the time, like, do all your students use your planner? And I said, yes and no. They are required to use it because we teach them time management with it, but as they have to use it, but they are also allowed to use something else, because again, I can't teach your child time management if they cannot see the whole picture. It goes back to the analog clock behind me. Digital gives me one time, it's the present. You can't see the future or the past. It's very similar with all this online stuff. You cannot see everything. You can't see what's coming up. You can't see what maybe you didn't do a week ago. It's really interesting. That's what we're really hearing. And the other thing is, all this online stuff, there's nowhere, as you said, there's nowhere to write anything down. So the disconnect is massive. There's a great divide for your student for what he sees online versus what he's taking in. And that's been cool. That's research proven. That's not even Leslie proven. It is Leslie proven, but you know what I mean.
Right. I get it. One of the things that was concerning to me that I wanted to bring up to you is that I've heard of a lot of schools that are doing like a hybrid model. And I heard this from a friend who's a teacher, and she's quite concerned about how this is going to work because her school is doing Monday is virtual.
Right.
Tuesday and Thursday, group A comes. Wednesday and Friday, group B. She's
Right.
like, this is chaos. and I hope that it works well the way these administrators think it's going to work, but I'm not sure. And how can parents help their kids, or how can students be prepared to be successful in this kind of like on again, off again, one day here, one day there model? And how do they stay on top of it and organized?
How do they stay organized? So again, it depends on what they need within that organizing system. So for example, if you're talking paper, this is where I am about, I love all-in-ones. I really do. So I don't know if you can see behind me. I practice what I preach because I do a ton of these, and I do my own webinars, my own company, and I'm always talking about like all-in-ones, and people, always I get asked, can you talk about your organizing system behind me? So if you notice, I'm a binder girl. I'm a massive binder girl, and I'm a massive binder girl because, believe it or not, I am forgetful. I know it seems funny to say. So if something's in a binder, I don't have to remember that it's there. I just have to take the binder with me. So most of my students who are going back, particularly to these hybrid models, are carrying with them all-in-ones. So they can either, and I'm going to tell you why they work in the hybrid model. Because I am not a believer, and this is what I meant yesterday when you said you might not like how I say this, I am not a believer in your student having one place in the home that is their setup. In fact, I am dead set against it. Because again, the law of diminishing returns. If your child is sitting in the same place all day long, you're done. Put a fork in them. It's not, they don't do it at school. Why do you think it's going to work at home? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be feisty, but I'm feisty.
That's great.
Think about it. Does your child sit in one place all day long at school? Not really. Maybe in elementary school, they have their desk, but elementary school students are up. They're in the circle, they're outside, they go to music, they go to art. They are not in one place all day long. Your child should not be. So you've got to think of portable supplies that they can take with them as they move around the house. So I like an all-in-one. I like a K-sit, or I like a duo. I really love the duo binder. And I can show you one. I have it here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hold that.
Yeah,
phone.
show us. I think I know which one you're talking about, but I want to see it.
Today too. So this is a duo binder made by a company called Sam Sill. And I am actually doing a collaboration with them. This is theirs, not mine. So this is an all-in-one. And here's how it works, which is why I love it. It is a binder, like a binder. So your child can put his notebook, can you see it? Can put his notebook, paper,
just a regular binder.
Right, but wait for it, as they say. And then there's these. And I love this. So I have students who carry either one for everything, or they carry one for each subject, because again, they fit in a backpack, they're super easy, they take 2 steps, and they don't have to hole punch. You can make those accordions like homework, quizzes, whatever it is. And then you know what K-sit is, like the zippered binder.
The zip around. Yeah, those seem a little, like there's a lot inside it. So
there's a lot inside it, but my favorite
Did the papers get crushed? No?
I thought.
Okay.
But here's my favorite, why I love, here's the one I love the most. So what I like about these binders is that they're customizable, meaning if you don't want like this thing, it comes right out. You can get rid of it. Here's an accordion, it comes right out. The only K-sit binder I like, can you see that there's 2 rings?
Yes. Double rings are key.
Double rings are what makes it work, because if you only have 1 ring, it becomes very heavy. What a lot of my younger students like about the double rings is they can do A-Day, B-Day, A-Day, B-Day, morning class, afternoon class. If they're going into the school, they can even do 2 like pencil holders.
Okay.
And they just flip the binder over. It's the afternoon and there's their case and there's their, so it's, and the double rings equally distribute the paper. So it's not, to your point, overloaded and heavy.
Right. Got it. Okay.
And then this is my absolute, I'm going to say it, guys.
That I love. I think that's the one that because we have the accordion, you know, for loose papers, but then she has all the other notebooks, but the combination.
My number 1 school supply. If you've ever heard me speak, if you've ever seen any of the videos, and the funny thing about it is I found this online, and originally when I found it, the company did not promote it as a school supply. It was an office supply. And I went online and said, this is for school. And now they, you know, I'm doing, which is really fun.
Totally.
Collaboration with them. I'm making some products along with them, and it's amazing.
Brilliant.
And
Yay.
so again, you can move this around your house and then you throw it in your backpack and you're good to go. That's what I'm advising for this hybrid model.
Excellent. Yeah, because like I left it at home. Oh, I left it at school. Oh, I left it is.
There's no leaving it at home. And the other nice thing about it is when you're done with, I have some kids that keep these as receptacles for, like, you know how like when you're finished with a chapter and the teacher says you can take the chapter on Mesopotamia out of your notebook, you know what I mean? Like when you're done, a lot of them just use one for each subject and they sit on a bookcase, and now you're organized and ready for finals or midterms or what have you.
That's great. Yay.
Easy, guys, easy. Forget the red binder, blue binder, green binder.
Well, and for this, like I can see, so for my kids, I like that just the little elastic, because the zipper around, while it contains everything, it's a barrier.
It's a barrier to entry.
It is a little bit, it's just like a lid on a toy bin. Like they're not going to put it away if you have a barrier.
Right. But I like to give options because everybody needs, so I always say if it takes your child more than 2 steps to do something, they're not going to do it. The Duo is 2 steps.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm a Duo girl, and you can find them we have them, Amazon has them. They're sturdy and they're fabulous. And the other funny thing I always say is when you're buying loose leaf paper, spend a few dollars more and buy the one that is reinforced. Do not buy cheap. I'm sorry. If you're going to spend your money, buy reinforced loose leaf paper.
Yeah,
So,
I see the same thing with with the page protectors. If you do page protectors, it's worth it buying the little bit heavier ones.
That's so funny because I have a list of things that I want kids to have that are not on your typical list. So an analog clock is on the list. A timer is on the list. Page protectors are on the list. And people go, page protectors? And I'm like, your child is always going to have one thing from one class that they are going to use every single day, whether it's the periodic table for chemistry, the list of their multiplication table for 3rd grade, or like their Spanish verbs from Spanish class. That needs to go in a page protector in the front of their binder. Number one, it keeps it visual, and it shows your child that this is like the thing I always need. It needs to stand out. So put page protectors on your shopping list. And then I'm going to give you one more thing, and I actually have one. Sorry. This, to some of you, can you see this?
Yes.
This is
my daughter and I are going to do one of these.
It's a 3-sided presentation board. What we use it for, my students, is what we call a privacy shield. Now, this one is huge. This is like 2 feet tall. It costs $5 at Staples, because I'm serious. I'm really trying to not spend. You can even cut it in half if you want and get 2 out of them. What we are doing with these for students, if you have more than 1 student at home and everybody's working at the dining room table or the kitchen table, and I'm poking my brother and she's annoying my sister, or I'm 16 and I really don't want to be in a fishbowl where all eyes are on me, everybody gets a privacy shield, including mom and dad if they're working at home. You can decorate the inside. You can put the school schedule. You can put a pocket folder to put papers in. You could put your assignments, sticky notes. You can even put a little thing for pens. It's portable, so it moves around the house. And you can even put on the back of it, do not disturb, deep work. Or I have parents now who are sitting at the kitchen table with their kids, like they're working and the kid is working. Do not disturb me. Like literally, like unless the house is on fire, do not talk to me right now. Like, and I'm not being funny, but I am being funny. And this three-sided thing has probably become the most important board or most important tool that parents are buying for students who are working from home. Because if you are moving around the house and your child's sitting in the den, again, you're creating structure, you're creating like their space.
Yeah.
That might, we don't all have the luxury of living in enormous houses. Here's how we adapt to that.
But if they want to also do that thing where you say like they go do math on the porch and science in the basement or whatever, they can bring that with them and that's their desk or that's right.
That's their right.
So that's their setup.
That's their setup.
And I think you could even put one of those, take a plastic page protector and tape it to the back, and that becomes a whiteboard that you can write those messages like, Mom, I'm in math now, don't bug me.
It's so funny. And I don't know, maybe someone else. I actually take the credit of like from years ago, walking into Staples going, why couldn't I use that to put, because what I remembered about school is, remember the carols? Like your kids sat at a desk and they had like that. And all of a sudden I saw this and I went, I can mimic that at home. Because what I was hearing was my 15-year-olds, my 14-year-olds saying, or even my 13-year-olds going, I'm not allowed to be working in my bedroom because, that's not a good look for anybody. And parents going, I want him out in the open, but the 14-year-old going, but I don't want to be in that fishbowl. I don't want somebody. Yeah. So what you're doing is your child is kind of in a place where you can watch them, but they're old enough to have some privacy around them as well.
Yeah. You're giving them a little office. One thing, two things to that. One is I saw someone make one on Pinterest out of, it was like a shipping box. They took 3 sides, they cut it, they covered it. You don't have to, you could even do it for free if you want to. And the other thing is I actually made one of those for my older daughter back when she was in elementary school, just starting to get homework. And I had seen it in Family Fun magazine. And, but they had it like tricked out with all the school supplies on it. One thing I found was it was a little busy for her. And I think it was better. We eventually just went to that the sides had a couple of supplies and the front was blank. So she didn't have so much visual distraction around her.
I agree with you. So I actually, I think it was 2 years ago, because I did one for Family Circle. I made one for Family Circle magazine and I did it. And I did exactly what you said. I felt that some of the boards were too distracting, but the board I made for them, and I'm going to hopefully get some time to do it, is for younger kids who are having trouble, let's say, I want to say this correctly, who are trouble like breaking down their assignments. What a lot of my parents are now doing with these boards is they get their assignments, let's say on Sunday night. So they're taking the assignments, they're taking different color Post-its. So for example, if blue is science and red is math, and they're putting the assignments on the stickies, and they can put the stickies on the board. So when your student is, instead of having a checklist or reams of paper, they can just pull a sticky off their privacy shield, and that's what they're focusing on at that time. It takes that like the enormity, of everything they have to do out of the equation. And what's nice about a sticky is you can move it around. So again, that's another way. There's so, the boards, again, I'm all about customization because every child is different. Some, I have girls that have decked their boards out like their rooms. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're like, oh, I decorated my locker. I want to decorate my board.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's whatever works. Some kids don't want anything on the boards. Some kids want it to look like, whatever. It's just another vehicle to help us all like adapt to working at home.
Yeah. And then if you have one like my younger one, I know her, she would like, trick out her board all fancy. And then a month later, she'd want to change the whole thing. And you know what?
That's fine.
Fun,
Right. And they're inexpensive. I know, yes, I realize you can make them for free, but again, what I happen to love, the board I bought in particular was like $5, and you could even cut it in half, and now you've got two of them. So it's a great, and everything else you have at home. You have markers and
Yeah.
stickies and folders, and what's really great is taking one of those paper folders that they sell at Staples for like 99 cents, cut it in half and put a pocket for like, and tape it to the side. This is another big thing where it's like work in progress, because not every
Oh,
assignment you get is a one-off. You know what I mean? Like yes, your children might have math homework that's due tomorrow, but they will also have like their penguin project or their Mesopotamia project that might go on for 2 weeks. So put a folder right on the board that says work in progress, and that's where the things that they're working on continuously goes. So again,
yeah.
I think for every child, there's probably a way to make this work for them.
That's great. That's great. And yeah, and another thing I was just going to say about what I love about what you do, like you talk about that you work with a lot of students with ADHD, but I think everything you say is just best practices for,
Yeah.
that you can apply to any child, any situation,
Well,
take what works for them. And
we feel that way, that anything we do, it's called universal learning. The same way, like if you remember if everybody knows what universal design is, universal design was a great example of universal design is the curb cuts. They were originally put in for those that had physical impairments. But what we found is people with luggage, or people wheeling a baby carriage, or people with a suitcase going down the street, whatever it was, it benefited them. It's the same thing with universal learning. All of these ideas might have come out of working with individuals with ADHD who need maybe a little more motivation, or a little more focusing, or a little more fun and, energy around their, a little more visual cues, but yet it benefits every student. There's nothing here, I want to say that is ADHD specific. Nothing.
yeah, I think it's great. Well, this has been amazing. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I mean, I feel like I could just listen to you all day about all of this. But can you just, like, you had those in your thing, the trifold presentation board, the analog clock, the page, these are your like must-haves, the page protectors, and
timers. Again, any kind of timer, but I like not a kitchen timer. I want a timer that you see time move. So it could even be a sand timer. You can't see them, but I collect sand timers because some of my students, when I'm working with them, find a tick, 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 tick timer to be very anxiety producing. So I'm gonna kind of show you this, like, believe it or not, again, anything that makes things fun. I feel like I'm giving a tour of my office. So I don't know if you can see it. It says 30 minutes. So I use this a lot when I'm coaching, because again, a student thinks this is way more, it's just softer and less anxiety than a timer. But some of my students love timers, but I think a timer has to be on everybody's back to school shopping list.
Great. That's so great. Really helpful. I love it. And yeah, anything else that you want to say? Do you want to just give a preview of your book that's coming up?
Can I do that?
Can we just mention it? Yeah,
I would love
to, because it's great. I was able to read an advanced copy, and it's, everyone needs to get it when it comes out. It's really essential for students, I think.
Thank you. I love this book. I know that's funny to say as the one who wrote it, but it's called How to Do It Now, because it's not going away. So I guess everyone can kind of guess that it is about procrastination in students. And for 2 seconds, the reason why I wrote it was because there is so much out there about procrastination, but not for kids. And what we as parents need to realize is, number one, our procrastination in our students is different than procrastination in adults, and it shows up differently. Your kid procrastinates for different reasons, and it looks different. And there really wasn't anything out there that really spoke to the student directly. So yes, what I kind of did is I took the word procrastination and I broke it down into chapters of things that are getting in your child's way. So it's everything from time management to homework to study skills to mood to distractions to planning, all of that. And I think it's really user friendly. But the one thing that I think what we're hearing is what people are really enjoying is the stories, because I interviewed all of my students and took all of their stories and put it in the book so that if you're reading it, even as a parent, you'll see your own child, or if you're a student reading it, you're going to be like, oh my God, that's me.
Totally.
And I think that's what needed to happen. And that's
it's
not
relatable.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the reason that that's so powerful is because the book does speak directly to the students. So it's not mom or dad or coach or anyone saying like, you're a procrastinator. And this
Right.
is what it's putting the student in the driver's seat of being able to say, hey, I need to find some solutions here for what's going to work for me to conquer my procrastination habit. And
Right.
that's what I liked about it.
Thank you. And I also think what the theme of the book is, and I think this is a funny thing to say about a book about procrastination, is just because you procrastinate does not make you a procrastinator. And that's literally how the book starts. And even my editor was like, that's so interesting. And I'm like, but I think kids need to see that because, and again, I'm not disparaging parents, but we show up to our kids with, you're procrastinating. And I challenge that with parents going, well, what is making you say that? There's degrees of procrastinating. There's doing something the day before versus not doing it at all. That's a huge difference. I always say, if your child has something due at 11 o'clock at night, let's say, you can't yell at them at 10:55. You can yell at them at 11:05. And that's like, okay, I get your point.
Yeah.
So the book is definitely a read for both parents.
It is great. Students. It's great. I was a procrastinator, and not just that I procrastinated, but in school I was a master procrastinator. If anyone's ever seen that TED Talk about Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator, that was exactly the way that I got through school. And it was always like I had to have a fire lit under me. But now, and one of the things in your book really resonated, the setting deadlines and keeping time limits so that perfectionism doesn't take over. If you put, say like, this is the amount of time I'm going to spend. And so some of the tips in there were great. And I think I love that the idea of giving it to the student and letting them choose what is going to work for them. There was a lot of that in there. So
and it's not, I mean, I'm going to say this as the writer of it. I worked really hard that it wasn't preachy or judgy, because our students get a lot of that in their lives to begin with. And I cannot be that person because I'm not that person. That's the beauty of coaching. You're not a parent or a teacher. You're on their side. Not that parents aren't, but you don't have the emotion of the parent and you don't have the instruction of the teacher. You're like, you're the one kind of working with the student to say, and that's kind of what the book does, is what's getting in your way. Let's dig deep and figure it out.
Well, I think, and as a companion to your planner, it's another tool that for the student to learn how to be in charge of their own studying, their own life, to take control of their academic journey, so that it's not other people directing them, that they can learn the skills and the tools to know how to do it themselves. And so the planner teaches them how to manage their time, and the book will teach them a lot of other study skills that they need, a lot more. So I'll definitely be plugging that when it officially launches and comes out, and everybody should buy it. And it's
busy here. We're busy here at Order Etiquette. My God.
That's great. It's great, especially back to school. I so appreciate you taking all this time with me.
Please.
We went way over what was planned, but
don't worry about it.
You have so much to say. It was great.
Listen, it's a horrible time right now. I don't sugarcoat anything. It is just beyond right now. So we are trying, even at, like, again, everything we're doing right now at Order Etiquette is just trying to show up as best we can for anybody who needs us. So I'm happy to have done this and be here to help your people.
So for everyone, you can listen to this again. I'll put links to all of Leslie's stuff, and you can find her and all of her great products and advice and videos and everything that she has. So thank you so much, Leslie, for joining me.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So great to see you.
Happy back to school.
Thanks. Bye.